LA Football Podcast.
Touchdown Ram! Recovered by the Chargers. Touchdown UCLA!
With USC great and NFL stud, Frostee Rucker.
The Trojans back in front.
And LAFB founder Ryan Dyrud on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
All right, what's up, Los Angeles? And thanks for tuning in to another edition of the LA Football Podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network, always on the LA Football Network, LAFBnetwork.com, joined as always by the great Frostee Rucker. Well, it's been a little while. You've been busy, so how you been, man? What's up? Welcome back.
I'm good. I'm here, man. Let's talk. Let's talk these Chargers. Let's talk these Rams. Let's talk to LA.
Absolutely. So, yeah, first week of free agency just wrapped up. So excited to kind of get into it with you, Frost, and get your opinions on what went down with our two teams. And we'll kind of cross each player off as they went and see if there's anyone available still that maybe they should target and spend some money on. So should be a good episode, insightful to get into. But first, always got to mention BetOnline.Ag, sponsor of the LA Football Podcast. This may be the best week besides Super Bowl week for sports betting with March Madness going on. Even if you haven't bet on money yet, head to BetOnline.Ag. You can parlay some of those games that are going on tonight, tomorrow night, next week. I had a big parlay going today, Frost, and that Virginia upset by Ohio completely ruined it. Big disappointment. But you can head to BetOnline.Ag to try to win some money back. So you been watching the tourney?
Yeah, man, I'm enjoying it. There's not one perfect bracket out there anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy. After not even the first round's not even over yet, and it's not a single bracket's perfect. This was like the first year I watched like zero college basketball, like literally not a game. So I was totally filling mine out blind. So I deserve to be busted early. I had Ohio State in the championship. They lost round one. Yeah, Virginia going far. So what can you do?
How about Oral Roberts?
Good for them. I always root for the underdogs, but not when I have money on the favorites. So.
It's always the first weekend when you can get the underdogs and really play with the lines and stuff like that, because they're not going to be they can't really predict what's going to happen, because you might get that Cinderella story.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
So,
do you have a team? I mean, USC won today, so that was good.
USC, but I think overall, if we do lose to a team, it's going to be Gonzaga, and I think Gonzaga takes it.
Zags are good.
Yeah, but I love SC. I love how tall they are. I love their players, their coaches. They play really hard. I like it. I like what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're very tall, so their defense is great.
Yeah, those Mobley brothers are fantastic. And, I love their coach. And UCLA is about to tip off as we're recording as well. So both LA schools represented in the tourney. I picked Michigan to win it all just because I was going in blind. And I was like, no one else is going to pick them in my 50-person bracket thing. So we'll see. That's the only way they can save me is if they win now that my whole bracket's destroyed. So we'll see what happens.
You got a good coach, good team. Let's see them make them run.
Yeah, I like Juwan Howard. So, all right. Well, for us, let's get into let's start with the Chargers first, because they were the most active in free agency. Rams, obviously, we talked about a lot, their cap issue, and so that was more what they were focused on. But they did do some stuff, and they probably are not done yet as they get under that cap still and rework some contracts now that Matt Stafford's official. But let's start with the Chargers, because they were pretty active. We can go player by player if you want, but I'll just throw it to you right now. Was there any signing that jumped off the page of you that you were like, damn, that was a great signing for this Chargers team, and they're going to be better from here on out just because of that?
Ryan, I really like the Corey Linsley signing. I think he's a perfect guy to call the shots on that offensive line for this phenom quarterback that's going to be behind him. He has experience playing with a really great quarterback. I'm sure the more of the relationship that comes between him and our young quarterback, it's only going to help his team. I'm sure he had a good rapport with Aaron Rodgers. Sure, they had some beers. He's that type of player, and he's the highest paid center in the league right now. So that just made this offensive line grow. And then, you can go down the line of all the signs they have, but that Corey Linsley one, that's the one, Ryan.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I talked earlier in the week that it was the signing that made the most sense And sometimes those common sense signings don't come to fruition. They just make too much sense. And so I'm glad they were able to get it done, get him paid, get him his bag, get him over here to LA. And because we talked about, the importance of protecting your number one asset, which is Justin Herbert. And he was a center, all pro center, as you mentioned, drafted at Ohio State in the mid rounds, but really played above his draft grade and has become the kind of staple at center. I mean, he's obviously an all pro, but he's, top 2-3 centers in the entire league, and has really earned that position, that spot. And so it was a huge get for the Chargers. And I think even better, what Telesco was able to do was, yes, he made him the highest paid center in the game, but his cap hit this year was only like $6 million. So the way they finagled that contract was they were really able to give him a backhanded deal so they could still go after players, which we'll get to in this year's free agency, instead of kind of, allocating it all to him. I'll probably ask you this for every player, so you'll probably get annoyed, but did you ever play against Lindsley at all?
No, I never personally played versus him. I would say something to you. I'm always going to say that. No, I don't play. I haven't played against him, but like you just mentioned, the type of player he is, he's, if not the best one in the league right now. And the Chargers really, really, really hit a home run with this. And like you said, it's not a cap heavy deal. It's a perfect one for them, something they can grow into, and they have a ton of money to still go after some good players. Yeah.
And I'm sure our guy, Frank Smith, offensive line coach, is ecstatic to get someone like this to work with. And, we'll talk about more guys that he's just added to his room that really, we said he had probably the hardest job coming into the season for this Chargers team because of what the unit was last year, but getting a guy like Lindsley certainly makes it a little easier to integrate his philosophies and what he wants. And the next guy, let's talk about Frost, because we could just go down the offensive line. But let's keep it with Frank Smith, because Hunter Henry was a big player of chatter, if you will, with fans, with the Chargers. Didn't franchise tag him again, which would have cost him about $13 million. So the hope was to get a long-term deal done. Well, that doesn't happen. He ends up going to New England, signing a big contract, making about that $13 million a year. And then to fill his spot, the Chargers end up signing Jared Cook to a 1-year deal, $6 million. So half the money he made.
Brilliant move.
Right? I think it was fantastic. You look at, obviously he's older, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just tit for tat. And when you go down the line, Hunter's just been injured. There's no doubt about that. The talent wasn't there, and he couldn't stretch the field, but he was never healthy enough to really live up to it. But you got a proven veteran, a Pro Bowl type player, a few years playing with the great Drew Brees, before that playing with Derek Carr. He's going to be a perfect target for this team. Again, Frank Smith is doing the job of, using those relationships he had. We talked about that when we had Coach on. Mm-hmm. We talked about him and, Jared and Drew. He said he loved Jared, and now look at it now. Then you get a chance to play for a coach like that really wants you and you're really comfortable with. I really like what they're doing over there.
Yeah, it's when we had Coach Smith on, it was funny, and this is nothing against Darren Waller, but I noticed that whenever he talked about his past players, he brought up Jared Cook the most out of all those players, and maybe that's just their relationship they had, but I think that speaks volumes, and they were able to get him, had his best season with Frank Smith as his tight ends coach with the Raiders. And then the last 2 years in New Orleans with Joe Lombardi was a quarterback coach, but still an influence a little bit. And now Joe Lombardi's the offensive coordinator. So they're getting guys that there's a lot of knownness, if that's a word. There's a relationship that had been built already. And I think that the biggest thing too is Cook has had 17 touchdowns over his last 2 seasons. So, I mean, that's what you want in a tight end.
Yeah, you Chargers fans, he is a straight dog. You know what I'm saying? I played with him in 2018 with the Raiders, and I was very much in awe because I played versus him many, many times. He played for the Rams. I was a Cardinal. I knew the guy was going against the guy, but then being his teammate and to see, how he went about his work. And I mean, he was our complete offense. And if you look at the Raiders, the past couple of years, the tight ends have been their whole offense. Mm-hmm. It's not a number one receiver that, gets all the yards. Yeah. It's been the tight end. And he was just as good as they come, great teammate. You do remember, Ryan, when we had that roundtable when I talked about with the moves the Chargers are already making, mm-hmm. do they make for the better team in LA? And, everyone said, no. I'm just like, I just wanted to look at it because, you got a new head coach, new coaches coming in here with money. They all got familiarity with a lot of players around the league, and people are coming here. They're flocking to come to the Chargers.
Yeah.
It's shaping out to be what I said. And that has nothing to do with the Rams, and we're going to get to them.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like, this is the first or second time last year, a little bit, but the first time I can remember where the Chargers were considered like a hot destination for players to come. They were they always got players in free agency, but it was always the mid-tier guys. And part of that may have just been GM moves, but I think it also was it wasn't viewed as an organization to come and build and grow and win. And they've kind of created that mentality in a really quick turnaround, and especially with this new coaching staff. So you're absolutely right. And we'll talk more, but I think they could. I may be more optimistic, and I do think the Rams are the better team right now, but I think the Chargers are a lot closer than people think. I don't think there's some bottom dweller in the AFC West or some 7-9. I think they're a lot closer than people think, especially with these moves.
Oh yeah. And, they have their quarterback. That's the best thing, a rookie deal. So they can continue to make these moves, continue to build. And I hope one day this kid gets so good that he starts doing Tom Brady type deals, worrying about the off the field money and making his contracts team friendly so he can stay with talent around him. Because the moves they're making right now, the depth they're going to be building, they're poised for a dominant team.
Yeah.
And I'm loving every move they're making.
Yeah. Herbert can make a ton of money off the field here in Los Angeles. But either way, regardless, they have 4 years with the 5th year option of his rookie deal, so they can get a lot done. Right. Last thing about Cook though, because I think there was a lot of mixed reviews. I thought this was a slam dunk signing. You save $6 million as opposed to paying Henry, so you save money on it. The production is honestly just as good, if not better. I know he's older, but it's a 1 year deal, so you see how it goes. Then maybe you draft a guy in later rounds, or you can re-up it if he has a really good year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 2018, which was the year you were with the Raiders. The first game of the season, and I hope I'm thinking of your same team, but the Raiders played the Rams on Monday Night Football, I believe. Yeah. And Jared Cook went off that game. Went like 2 or 3 touchdowns, like 100 yards. Am I thinking, were you on that team?
Yeah. I was on that team, and it was just a sight to see that he just held the whole team down, but that was happening in that training camp. Mm-hmm. When you're starting to practice, you see who's really featured in this offense. We went through that season. We ended up getting rid of Amari, which was our true number 1 receiver. Mm-hmm. And slowly but surely, everything came down to Jared Cook. And then within that year, we signed Darren Waller. And it was just watching them two at practice, it was just like Darren watching Cook and Jared, doing what he does, every single day in practice. Yeah. So, it was a perfect guy for Waller to come in and see work and see how to go after it and see everything that offense could provide. And Jared's here. They're going to put him in position to make these plays. He's going to make incredible plays. He's going to stretch the field. It's a matchup. Their offense is slowly but surely building a matchup that this division needs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm glad I got that game right, because I remember that was the Rams team that went to the Super Bowl that year. Obviously, it was the opening game of the season, but Raiders had a great game. Jared Cook had a great game. And, yeah, that was your team, so that's fun. So, did they ever put you out in coverage against them in practice, or no? They kept you on the line?
No, we didn't mess around like that, but we had to practice versus each other, First couple of weeks, I did a lot of scout and first team stuff so I could, further my cardio and stuff like that while I'm feeling good. I like to work. So I went up against him a lot. And no, he's an excellent talent. I've been competing versus him for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm a big Jared Cook fan. He's one of the guys when I left the Raiders, I got his jersey. He signed it. We swapped jerseys and stuff like that. There's a mutual respect. Yeah.
There you go. So Chargers fans listening, Frostee Rucker approves of Jared Cook, and you should too. And I think that's enough approval for all you fans out there. So
he's a big play guy, man.
Yeah. Just don't fumble in the big moments in the playoffs.
That happens sometimes.
That happens. That's Juju Smith. I mean, it's football. I've done it in my career too. So I'll couple these two offensive linemen together. We can talk briefly on Matt Feeler, who they also signed a 3-year deal worth $20 million, about $7 million per from the Steelers. Talked about a little bit last week. Super versatile, can play really anywhere on the offensive line, which is great for the Chargers. Just if they have injury, especially with Brian Bulaga, who had an injury last year, but hopefully he can stay healthy. But he gives you that versatility. And then Ode Abushi from Detroit, they signed today as well, who I thought was another great veteran signing as they just continue building this offensive line. What do you think of those two?
Yeah, they're doing a good job of building the right guys that can go in there and actually play. These guys can give you reps, real good, solid reps. They want to compete. They've kind of been in other people's shadows in a sense with not getting the stardom that they deserve. And it's a perfect opportunity for this new wave team, new fresh coaches, superstar quarterback. The team is poised for great things. And, this is excitement and energy with a brand new offensive line coach, and they'll be able to gel with Frank, and, really he'll be able to put his whole system in. And I just see great things happening right now. So great signing. Actually competed versus O'Day a bunch, is a heck of a competitor. We're going to have to get him on here. He definitely will come on. And he's a work hard guy, a very work hard guy. Goes about his business. Is not too much joking around with him when it comes to football. And, I respect guys like that. And he's just a heck of a competitor. He'll actually stand out there and fight with you. And, I like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's what they need. That's what they need. Something that can stay healthy too. So, that was today, came across the wire, and I think that was a phenomenal signing for him. One we didn't mention, just a re-signing. Mike Davis brought back cornerback.
Great deal.
Yeah, huge, especially after releasing Casey Hayward. That was kind of to me, aside from offensive line, that was the most important thing after releasing Casey, was keeping Mike Davis, who is just kind of a staple in the secondary and really progressed to be really good in the second half of the season, not just for the Chargers, but in terms of the league as a corner. I think he was one of the top corners in the league. So I'm really happy that he's back. Happy for him. I know he was ecstatic, him and his mom, who he's had an incredible story to his journey to the NFL, being undrafted. So awesome to see him stick around here in LA. So far, and they're not done yet. They still have about $30 million in cap space, so they can still make plenty of stuff happen. But so far, I think the Chargers have done a phenomenal job in free agency.
It's time to get some more edge guys.
So I was going to ask you, so you don't have to give me any names. I don't know how in depth we both have looked at this, but is that what, with the money they have left allocated, you want to see them attack the edge? Is there a specific player, just a position?
Yeah, I think edge guys, you got to give Bosa some help. That can also happen in the draft. There's a ton of guys out there that can rush the passer and want to. I think linebackers and rushers are where they need to go and focus. You're going to get a Derwin James back, a healthy one.
Speaking of Derwin, they let Rayshon Jenkins, he signed with the Jaguars. So now it's basically all in on Nasser Adderley. So safety could be another position. They maybe add some depth there too. Yeah,
absolutely. And they're not done. No matter even after the draft, they're not going to be done building this roster all the way into training camp. And then they're going to go, so we got time to see them really shape something with some quality players. And there's a couple guys out there I think would be on the radar. There's a couple. Offensive side of the ball, I think I would go with Deshaun Jackson. I would love to see him come home and play at SoFi. He'd bring a lot of energy to the stadium. He's a fighter type of guy, and things didn't go as right. His return to Philly, and I think him getting the chance to come home and signing a 1 or 2 year and actually giving everything he got on the soil, I think that'd be a good one. I think Marquise Lee, I think he's another guy that, it's a Trojan guy, but another guy that can play some football and get a chance to come home and be comfortable. We see across the street what they got going with our boy Bobby Trees. He feels good. He's at home.
Yeah.
And he's playing like that. He's playing in front of his home crowd. And I think that would be excitement for the Chargers if they got two receivers like that, notable guys that aren't going to cost you a lot of money, but want to go out there and get stats for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, Robert Woods, if you look at his career in Buffalo, he was still, playing, he's in the league. So, I'm not going to discredit that at all, but he wasn't doing what he's doing here. Something about coming home to LA, he really, and playing in the right system, got his career. Now he's, I consider him a top receiver in the game. And Marquise Lee, who was, when he was drafted, was considered one of the greatest Trojans ever at the receiver position, which has had a ton of great receivers. Absolutely. And his NFL career just hasn't panned out. Do you think it was just kind of, Jacksonville, that's where players go to die almost? Or why do you think that was?
Jacksonville's a type of situation that nothing's just completely, riots. Like they're still trying to figure out what their plan is.
Identity.
Yeah, they don't have that. Even when they had a little bit of success 2 or 3 years ago, right after it, they didn't have any more success. It was like, and I don't want to say players go there to die because they all want to play in the situation. I think it's management. I think, new ownership and all this, it's going to take a little while for it to get figured out.
Yeah.
So just get it. Sometimes it's new energy for guys. But if he has a chance to come home, it's not going to be a deal that's going to kill your bank, or anything like that. I think AB's out there too.
He might be. I haven't looked at. He might be a free agent. Yeah, he signed I think a 1 year with Tampa Bay, so that'd be wild. Marquise Lee, I think the guy can still ball. So just because guys don't have success somewhere else, I mean they still have talent, they still put in the work. So if he's willing to work and come for cheap, I like that signing a lot. So you mentioned edge guys. I think there's still some out there. There's always the name Jadeveon Clowney. He's a guy that, hey, if he's wanting to come for cheap, I think it'd be real fun to watch him alongside Joey Bosa. I don't think anyone would complain about that.
They immediately, if they make a signing like Clowney, they immediately go after the Chiefs and the Raiders. Those are the matchups you're looking for.
Yeah.
We figured out what it's going to take to beat Pat Mahomes is a stellar defense where they can run around and get to him, right? And right now, their offensive line isn't even stout. And this is a perfect time to load up and get to that $200 million guy back there.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think they could get him for a lot cheaper. I know he's playing out the market and seeing what's out there. But, I mean, he'd be a lot of fun to watch with Joey Bosa on the edge. And obviously still have the great Uchenna Nwosu as well. But if you can have those guys spell each other, I think that definitely helps. So, and then, like I said, I think we'll see them add a safety depth. The guy I've linked a lot is Will Parks, who, has some history with Brandon Staley, played with the Broncos and Eagles, and kind of a versatile guy, which I know Staley likes. So another veteran player that they could maybe get cheap if the Broncos don't re-sign him. So, but yeah, Frost, overall, I think these Chargers have done real well. My buddy, Stephen Haglund, who writes for LAFB Network 2, tweeted out today, at this time last year, the Chargers had not even made a single signing yet. So the fact that they signed all these guys, I think just shows the change in how they're doing and approaching things. And last year they didn't do anything and they still were able to get Chris Harris Jr., Brian Bulaga. They got some good signings. So it just shows that there's still a lot of work to be done. And they can still add a lot of talent after this first week.
Is Chris Harris Jr. coming back?
Yeah. He's got 1 more year.
This is great.
Yeah.
This is great because he didn't get the miles on his legs either. Yeah.
Cause he missed half the year. So, and he'll be hungry to be dominant. And, that guy's so good. I had him on actually right before you joined the show, and he's an awesome dude. I was a huge fan of his in Denver, obviously. So it was cool for me to be able to talk to him for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're making their way for a solid team. And I think it spells out this head coach has a little bit more control than maybe Anthony Lynn did. Right. Because he's firing right now. And I think, at the end of this, we're going to be able to sit back and say how good of a job their scouts did to build the depth around this team.
Yeah.
And because there's some really good football players out there, you just have to been following them since college and stuff like that. And they're looking for opportunities, guys that are on practice squads and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You got to really, really, really get some good ones, and they can.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And they will, I think. So last thing on the Chargers for us before we move on, we haven't dove into the draft. So we just give me more of an opinion answer, but at pick 13, I think pre free agency. So, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, it was like, they got to go offensive line at 13, offensive line or bust. Now signing 3 starting offensive linemen. Does that allow them to not pigeonhole themselves and just kind of take best player available? Do you still think they should take like a tackle if there's one that falls to them, or is it just another position? Or what do you think they should do at 13 now with this free agency so far?
Really, if Micah Parsons can fall to that slot, that's a no-brainer for me because, you get a stud linebacker like that can go sideline to sideline and make a lot of plays for you. It's kind of what you get in a Derwin James kind of player, more closer to the line, and he doesn't have to be in coverage as much, and he can probably blitz a little bit more, and it adds a lot of range to your team. But if there's an offensive lineman that somehow falls there, hopefully it's our guy Tucker from USC. If he falls there somehow in the mix and he doesn't have to leave, I would love to see a homegrown product, another homegrown product, stay home and get on a team that's very energetic and going somewhere. Not just a dud, and you got to work your way out of something. The hard work's going to be there. But if you got talent surrounding you, it ups your level of play, especially if you're ready to play.
Oh, I agree 100%. So I think Parsons would be interesting. Obviously, there's some off the field stuff in the past that, I think he's cleared. I don't know 100%. I haven't looked into it, but I think he's pretty much cleared that, but it still obviously lingers. But as far as just physical and skill set, he's a slam dunk, it seems like. And if you pair him with a Kenneth Murray, look out, that's a scary front seven when you already have Bosa and Linval Joseph and those guys, and you have Kenneth Murray and Michael Parsons. And then obviously you have Derwin James in the back end and what they have in the secondary. We just talked about Chris Harris Jr. So that could absolutely be a great pick for him. But I love Elijah Vera Tucker's who I want. I just think even though you add three guys, obviously Penei Sewell would be a dream, but there's no way he's falling to 13.
No way.
Yeah, not a chance he's falling to 13. Rayshon Slater out of Northwestern is another great tackle. I don't think he falls that far. And then you have the Christian Darrisaw and out of Virginia and Elijah Vera Tucker, who are kind of people go back and forth. I would rather have Elijah Vera Tucker, mainly just because we covered him, Washington USC. His versatility, played guard most of his career at USC, played tackle last year. So you can really play anywhere on the offensive line, which is the thing we're seeing with this Chargers team is versatility. And I think we've seen with Brandon Staley as a coach in general, just players being able to do a lot of different things. And yeah, just be able to keep them home. I mean, I love anytime you can keep a Trojan or a Bruin here in LA. I'm all for it. So for me, just straight up at 13, Elijah Vera Tucker is the pick. If I have my voice needs to be heard by Tom Telesco, that's who they're putting in at pick 13.
That's awesome. Not a bad one.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Well, obviously things will change and we'll talk a lot more draft here in the coming weeks as we are now, I think almost exactly. No. We're about a month and a week away from the draft. So coming up though, it'll be here before you know it. So Chargers great for agency so far. We'll continue talking about it throughout the next few weeks as they probably, I'm sure, will add a few more people. But for us, let's get over to the Rams, who not nearly as active, but the biggest thing for them was obviously getting under the cap without hopefully cutting a lot of players. So before we even talk about any signings, really the only player lost because they thankfully didn't have to cut anyone. But they did trade Michael Brockers to the Detroit Lions for basically a toaster and a burnt piece of bread, what they got back for him. Were you surprised by that?
Something they needed though.
Oh yeah, they need to free up some space. I just hate seeing it because I'm a huge Michael Brockers guy.
I kind of called that. I said it's going to be some players like that are going to just be victims of it, and it's unfortunate. It's not that they want to miss these players or get rid of them, but they're the only ones that have value when they're cash strapped.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's a guy that, is still fairly young and his contract's not anything crazy. He's making like $8.5 million this year. I think next year's like $7.5 million. But it comes off the books for the Rams, obviously, but for Detroit, they get a phenomenal defensive lineman and something that they can add to their room. I just thought it was super ironic. I think you actually texted me that he came out like a week or so and said, yeah, big upgrade for us with Matt Stafford at quarterback. And now he's back with Jared Goff. That might be awkward first time they see each other.
Yeah, I think he'll be all right though. And, if you stand by what you say and you can say you meant it, it is what it is, but they're teammates now. And I'm sure he hopes Goff gets it together.
Yeah. I don't think there'll be any drama. It's just always funny when that happens.
Yeah, well, it's part of it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, they freed up space with that. Do you think of the players you talked about, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, we talked about Rob Havenstein. You never want to see a player go. And obviously you are so short out of the league, but was that of those players, the smartest one for the Rams team to move on from, I guess I would say?
Yeah. Don't be surprised if more things coming, that was just the one that's going to scratch your head, the first one. They're still got to make some moves here that are going to be just off the cusp because they got to get something for the value. They have no money.
Yeah.
What I'm saying? And that's the sad part of this situation where it shouldn't be like this. And I wish it was like European soccer and, if you're the owner, you just buy and do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. But it's not like that. And they're cash strapped and you're going to still see some really good players leave. They're restructuring contracts, can only take you so far. But they got to get rid of some people. They got to get the money off the blocks.
So yeah, it show right now, according to SpoTrack, it says they're $14 million over the cap. There was reports, Wednesday, that they made it under the cap. That was before Stafford was officially announced as a Ram, and then they're going to restructure his deal. So there's nothing like concrete where number they at, but as far as we know, they are under the cap, but we have no idea if they have any money to spend. They might be like literally like $1 under the cap for all we know. Some speculation says they're 7 million under, which would give them some money for, obviously they have to allocate some for the draft coming up, and then maybe would have like 2 or 3 million to spend. But I mean, that's pushing it. To me, I think they're pretty close to even right now.
Yeah, and I'm going to weigh on the side that there's going to be some really good football players not on that roster.
Do you think there's anyone else like for sure? Or you're just kind of thinking that they're probably gonna have to make some moves?
I'm not one to, say that right around the draft and stuff.
Yeah.
When I dealt with that stuff, but there's just nothing they can do about it. I think the trades and stuff are going to be flying around, and this is going to be a crazy offseason. I think we've just seen the opening dates and stages of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're going to start seeing a more impulse of GMs moving guys and start being active. That's how you got to do it. You got to move these guys around, get these draft picks, and exchange for some cash here, and let's get vibrant with it.
Yeah, no, they have to. And the biggest thing too is if they're able to extend Matthew Stafford, which I don't know if that's in their plan right now. I think he has 2 years left in their deal that they obviously took over from the Lions. But if they extend him, then obviously they can move a lot of money around that way, which would free them up for this season.
They probably will.
Yeah, I'm sure though, even if they had a 1-year extension, just so they can turn it into he'll make 40 million on his last year or whatever, and then they'll deal with it then, which at that point you hope the cap is quite a bit higher of what it is now, which it will be. So who knows? I mean, Les Snead, he's a magician somehow, him and Tony Pastores, but yeah, it was a much quieter offseason so far than many Rams fans wanted, I think, than they're used to anyway.
Yeah. But that was the price they were paying to try to get to the Super Bowl now. You know?
So the big signing, let's hear it, Frost. I mean, the big signing was bringing back Leonard Floyd, 4 years, 64 million, roughly 16 million per year. Obviously, me and you were both big fans of Lloyd when we talked about when they signed him last year, how we thought it was a big underrated signing. He was a guy that could be versatile. This was back when Brandon Staley was the defensive coordinator for the Rams, and he was a versatile guy he could do some pass coverage if needed to. He was good against the run and obviously could rush the passer. At least he did in college, and we just didn't see it as much with the Bears, but we saw it last year with his 10.5 sacks. So do you think they overpaid, which they've done? We've seen Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Jared Goff. Now they kind of spent a lot of money on them and ended up moving on. Or do you think this was a guy that they just 100% believe in the price? That's what it was going to cost to keep him, and it was a good move for him.
I think it comes down to what Coach Eric Henderson has probably told him behind the closed doors, and the ceiling that this guy has. And I'm sure he has a lot of good football in him. And I think when you get a blessing like that by your position coach, after spending one season there working with you, taking in your techniques, being coachable and things like that, you don't get a contract just solely off stats unless the guy that coached you blessed you. So I think it's a great signing. I can't say if it's overpaying when you're looking in the conference and you got Chandler Jones, he makes a certain amount of money, and
JJ Watt now, and
JJ Watt and stuff like that. It's almost like an average of what he should be making. So they're not off there. They're just cash strapped. So it just looks like a big, why'd they do that?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not his problem. He did what he was supposed to do. He secured it, and he's going to give him 10 plus every year.
Yeah. No, I'm ecstatic they brought him back, because I did not think it was possible, but I didn't think they would spend that much on him to begin with. I thought his market would be right there, 16 million in the league. And I thought the Rams could pay him up to, 11 or 12. And that was where they were going to cap out. So when the deal got done, I was like, wow, I was shocked they were able to even somehow come up with that kind of money to give him. The only unfortunate thing is now it basically restricted them from signing anybody else. They tendered Darius Williams, which was, first round tender. Super glad he's back, but Troy Hill now is in Cleveland. John Johnson now is in Cleveland. Austin Blythe is still unsigned, so really no center for the Rams. which is a huge thing you talked about a lot, just 2 weeks ago or whatever. As of right now, Austin Corbett, who played guard last year, will be the center for the Los Angeles Rams unless they draft. So,
Well, they're drafting. I think they'll draft someone. I think they'll be in position for a lot of these holes to draft.
totally.
But again, what we're talking about is March, almost April, and the real world, and football doesn't start till September.
Yeah,
so
true.
They're going to be able to shuffle a lot of players and get them in and out. This is when the scouts earn their money. This is when the GM really earns his money. They got a solid team. They got some good players, but it looks like they're depleting a lot. Another signing that kind of hurts them is the Morgan Fox, that depth player that was a heck of a player for
Absolutely.
them. Now they don't have who just left.
Yeah, Brockers and Fox.
And now they don't have Fox, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're chopping away at one of those. The real soul thing of your team is your defensive front. Yeah. So now you're going to see why Coach Eric Henderson got the raise he did, and he got in charge of more stuff on his plate, because he probably knew this was coming, and now it's time to go. We're going to put the faith in you that you can develop guys. Yeah, and you can bring up the next one. We'll the scouts and who they're going to draft, and these free agents, and all the way until that opening day when the 53 is put together.
Yeah, I know that. That room luckily had depth, the defensive line room, and what Coach Henderson has done there. We'll have to get him on here soon to talk about the room. But what he's done there obviously is fantastic. And Morgan Fox, my guy from Colorado State Pueblo, so happy to see him get paid. But yeah, he played great last year, and he a lot of time came in to spell Michael Brockers, and now both of them are no longer on the roster. So
like that, and we're going to continue to see that. I'm just saying, I don't want to say no names or anything like that, but before, during this draft process, some people are still going to be on the block, and they're going to shape this team to make sure they can compete. That's why they got Stanford. They didn't go there to waste years of his career. He was already doing that.
Yeah. So they're going to do whatever it takes, I think, to get the Super Bowl this year, as every team should. I mean, that should be the goal. The Rams have just definitely put that on display more, that they're willing to, whereas other teams aren't. They kind of go balls to the wall. And
well, hopefully they're playing chess, right?
Yeah, hopefully
playing chess.
And as you mentioned, if players are still on the block, Les Snead has not been shy about trading back in the draft and getting more picks. Their first pick isn't until 57, but I would not be shocked if they trade 57 and add 2 or 3 more picks, and then really just build a roster at the back end of the draft, which they've done pretty good at. Jordan Fuller, Cooper Kupp, a lot of guys.
Players, you just need picks.
Yep. So I think that's probably the mindset that they're having is, hey, let's keep our own that we love in Leonard Floyd. We love John Johnson, but we drafted 3 safeties the last 2 years in Jordan Fuller, Terrell Burgess, and Taylor Rapp. So obviously we're not going to spend money on that. And then now we'll kind of just, get under the cap, and then we'll just try to add up picks and build it to the draft.
And just think about those low round drafts. Those are low round tenders.
Very true. When it comes time to re-sign,
That's what I'm saying. They could be playing chess with us. So, I'm not out on the Rams. They just got to make some moves, and they knew these issues were coming.
Yeah.
It's not like, the rug's been pulled up under them. They knew it. They game planned for it all. And now it's time to execute. And the scouts and the GM, here's where you make your money.
Yeah. Oh yeah. A lot of people talk about them being like reckless with their picks, but that could just be the plan all along. Yeah. We don't want to spend $10 million on a first round pick when we can get later round guys, and then we'll just get a guy that we know is good right now and spend that money now, like they have.
And the later round guys doesn't mean they're not good.
No, not at all.
You still got drafted. It's just, in the draft where the money is allocated.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you get drafted, that means out of all the people, you're high on the board. So they're just going to have to get, the best quality football players in there and snatch them up.
Yeah.
And, that's probably been the chess move that they've been making.
Absolutely. Well, Corey Linsley, who we just talked about with the Chargers, was a 5th round pick at Ohio State. He's all pro, considered one of the best centers in the game.
There you go.
You were a 3rd round pick. Played 13 years in the game, baby.
I was just saying, there you go. It's not where you get selected. It's just, getting the opportunity. And there's some good ball players out there.
Absolutely. So, there's some centers too that I think a lot of people are excited about. Quinn Murez is a guy a lot of people love out of Wisconsin Clearwater, small school. So But yeah, Rams haven't done a lot, but they've done what they had to do, bringing back who they needed in Darius Williams, Leonard Floyd, getting under the cap. If Frosty, let's say if like we've heard, or like I've heard, they're about 7 million over the cap. So, let's say take 3 or 4 of that for the draft. They have like 3 or 4 to spend, give or take.
Okay.
Is there any players maybe you like them to go after? I know you mentioned Deshaun Jackson, with the Chargers. They're a great fit for the Rams, who need a speed guy. They really don't. That's the one thing they're lacking from the receiving room. One guy I like a lot is D.D. Westbrook at Oklahoma. He's had same thing, kind of like not a great career at Jacksonville, but a phenomenal receiver that I think just needs a fresh start. But are there any players you can think of, or positions you can think of that they can get for super cheap?
I think the Rams are going to be really paying attention to the waiver wire. Ryan, I think at this current time, teams are going to start having to get rid of guys because of how many people are on the roster.
Yeah.
And then when that starts becoming an issue, I just really feel like the Rams they're playing chess,
Yeah.
And this is what they make the big bucks for. They got to play chess with these. Everything has to work.
Seems like it. Les Snead seems like a mad scientist. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah. If it's me, I think they might add a speed receiver for super cheap, but I agree with you in the trenches. They're, especially now that they just lost 2 big defensive linemen, one rotational, one starter. And then, we'll get a lot more into the draft in the coming weeks though. So, overall, I think
look at who they play against, and, look what what I'm saying? You got to go up front.
Yeah.
Cardinals have addressed it.
Yep.
49ers locked down their tackle.
Yeah. Seahawks are
they're going to figure it out for Russell, or he's not going to play.
So, okay, before we end this, we talked 3 or 4 weeks ago. We were like, Russ, it's all media talk. He's going to be in Seattle. You still think that, or you think he actually gets traded?
Well, I think the options for him to get traded are limiting.
They're dwindling, right?
Yeah. So I think that's the thing. But do we, for the first time ever, see a disgruntled Russell Wilson? And does he wear it on his sleeve, or does he just go and compete because he's under contract and does it that way, the good old boy way, and doesn't cause a static? Mm-hmm. The point of the matter is he's already came out and said his frustrations and said where he would want to go.
Yeah. Or his camp did anyway. Yeah. He still hasn't waived his no trade clause. So as of now, he hasn't officially asked to be traded. So.
Right. And so it's all speculation. You put it out there and he's not tampering or anything.
Yeah. I think he still is a Seahawk on day one of training camp. So
yeah, Coach Carroll's not going to get rid of him, but the mad scientist that Coach Carroll is, he is looking for his replacement.
Yeah. Well, there was reports that the Bears were in heavy talks with them, but the Seahawks were like, well, we're not just going to start over at quarterback. And there was nothing the Bears could give them in terms of quarterback. So, I mean, to me, that says the only way they're trading Russell Wilson is to a team that already has a good quarterback, which why would then that team do that? So I don't see it happening.
No.
Because as we talked about, Pete Carroll's not going to start over at his age. In the last few years, he's going to be coaching before he retires. He's not going to start over with a new quarterback, fresh rookie.
Not someone not groomed and ready to go.
Yeah, not happening.
No.
So anyway, all right. Well, there you have it. Chargers, great free agency so far. I think they'll still make stuff happen. Rams, I think, they've done what they've had to do. And we knew there wasn't gonna be a lot they could do. There's a lot of optimists out there that thought they could clear like 50 million in cap space out of nowhere, which I was very highly, I would call them out many times. That was not going to happen, and it hasn't. So we kind of knew what expected with them, but hey, they brought back Leonard Floyd, which I think we both agree is a great move. Before we wrap this up, Frost, let's talk about eBay a little bit, our new sponsor. Any new shoes you've gotten lately or anything?
I haven't got any new shoes. I've been more betting on BetOnline.Ag. Yeah. But I haven't got any shoes on eBay. What do you got out there? You got any deals?
Yeah, no, I'm not really a shoe guy. So I'm just being honest. I'm not going to BS the people out there. I'm just not, I wear Vans, Chucks. That's about it. But if you are a shoe guy, eBay is the place to go. eBay.com/sneakers. They got rare, dead stock, it's 100% authenticated. So you don't have to worry about any fraud or anything like that. If you're a seller, any shoes over $100, there's no seller fee. So you can buy and flip. Apparently that's a big industry. I didn't know, but yeah, big industry, shoe flipping. So if you buy a pair on eBay and you want to sell them over $100, no fees. So that's ebay.com/sneakers. sneakers. Head there today. eBay.com is the number one marketplace in the world. Still undefeated. Crazy. So, all right, Frost. Well, hey, thanks for jumping on with me. Appreciate you giving me some insight. I always love hearing your stories about players you've played with or against. Because that's what makes it fun for me. So thanks for sharing that insight, and excited to see what these two teams do in the next coming weeks.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Where can everyone find you at?
I'm at The Organic Frost, and I'm ready for some more emails. So email me at frosteepodcast@yahoo.com.
There you go. Chargers fans, email about all the Jared Cook stuff you want to know. Anything you want to know about Jared Cook, email Frostee podcast yahoo.com. If you want to talk to me, you can hit me up on Twitter at Ryan Dyrud. LAFB, the main account, LAFB Network on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Our YouTube channel is at LAFB Network. Make sure to subscribe there, as all of our podcast ends up there, plus other video content we'll produce throughout the off season. Thank you all for tuning in. This is the LA Football Podcast. Frosty, thank you, sir. We'll talk to you in a few days.
All right, buddy.